My name is Naomi Reed. I'm 31, and for the last 11 years, I've been trying not to flinch when someone says, "So, what exactly do you do?" Tonight, I parked 3 houses down from my parents' driveway. There was no room left by the time I arrived, not that anyone saved me a spot. Blake's BMW, Mia's Mercedes SUV, even Uncle Grant's vintage Porsche all gleamed under the string lights Mom insisted on leaving up since Christmas. Mine, a gray 10-year-old Honda Civic with a missing hubcap blended into the shadows. I killed the engine, checked my reflection. No makeup, just tinted lip balm. A black sweater. Simple earrings. I debated wearing something louder, something that said, "I'm doing better than you think," but that always backfired. My mother once told me I looked like I was trying too hard to be creative after I wore a silk jumpsuit to Mia's graduation. So this time, I dressed like wallpaper. The front door was open. Laughter spilled out onto the porch, light and elegant and familiar. A cocktail party with people who shared your face, but not your curiosity. I stepped inside. "Naomi," Mom called from the dining room. Finally. I wasn't late. I was precisely on time. But to her, I was always arriving just a little too late for everything. Everyone was already seated. Blake at the head of the table, of course, next to Dad, who liked to say Blake reminded him of himself at that age. Mia next to her fiancé, Jeremy, who had recently transitioned into wealth management, which everyone treated like he'd joined the Peace Corps. Aunt Val and Uncle Grant were halfway through their wine. A few cousins, family friends, and then me ushered to the far end of the table beside a fern, 2 chairs down from anyone whose name I actually remembered. The dinner hadn't started, but they'd already toasted twice. I recognized the look on Blake's face. He'd just finished talking about his new role at the startup Dad helped him get into. Something blockchain, Series A, funding, global markets. I stopped keeping track after the seed round. "Your brother's doing such amazing things," Mom said as I found my seat. "So exciting. He's on Zoom calls with Singapore, can you imagine?" I smiled. "That's great, Blake." Blake nodded, barely glancing my way. "Thanks. It's been a wild quarter." Dad cleared his throat like he was teeing up another brag. "And let's not forget Mia's wedding's coming up next spring. Jeremy's firm is managing all the venue contracts himself." Mia beamed. "We just confirmed the floral team. They did the Oscars last year." "Of course they did." Mom sighed, as if she'd just tasted a spoonful of joy. I reached for a water glass that was still dry. "So, what's new with you, Naomi?" Aunt Val asked, tilting her head with the same expression people give street performers, part curiosity, part skepticism. "Oh," I said. "Working? Staying busy?" "She has a little business," Mom cut in. "You know, the online thing she does, skincare, soaps, very cute stuff." I nodded slowly. "It's going well." Jeremy leaned forward. "Like Etsy?" A pause. "Not exactly," I said. "I have my own site, DTC. We also distribute through some select—" "Oh, that's great," Mia interrupted, smiling with the warmth of someone who didn't hear a word I said. "I keep meaning to order some. Do you do lavender?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Blake was already talking again. "Naomi's always had a knack for crafts," he said, swirling his wine. "Remember those little glitter jars she made as a kid? You were what, 15? Selling them at the school fair?" Everyone chuckled. "Handmade things are trendy now," Mom added, nodding toward my direction as if I'd brought a mood board with me. "People love that homespun stuff." Homespun. I made a note of the word. It would sit with me later, somewhere between my collarbone and stomach. I kept eating. Salmon with caper cream, perfectly plated. The kind of meal that wants to be photographed. I took small bites and kept my eyes down. That was the safest way to get through these things: minimal eye contact, keep the conversation from circling back. Let Blake hold court, let Mia pivot to florals and menu samplings, let Dad rerun stories of his early law firm days like a sitcom he wrote himself. "Did you guys see the commercial Blake's team did?" Mom asked. "It ran during the Grammys." "I showed it to everyone in my book club," Aunt Val said. "So slick, so modern." Blake waved it off, but I could see the satisfaction in the corners of his mouth. "It was just a brand piece. We're focusing more on community integrations next quarter. Real impact stuff. You always were the visionary," Dad said. "I keep telling Naomi she needs to think bigger. Scale. That's what matters now." I kept chewing. There it was. The same note he always struck, just in a new key. Scale. Not sustainability, not ethics, not quality. Scale. "Have you ever thought about getting a real partner?" Mom asked, slicing into her asparagus. "Someone with a finance background who can help you scale?" A beat of silence. Aunt Val looked at me sympathetically. "Or even just a full-time job on the side, just until things even out." "I'm okay," I said softly. Jeremy chuckled. Come on, Naomi. I mean, you're not curing cancer. You sell soap. And just like that, everyone laughed. Even Mia. Even Dad. Even Mom, who placed a hand on Jeremy's arm like he was a particularly witty waiter. Only Aunt Val didn't laugh. She glanced at me, but she didn't say anything. I took a sip of water. It tasted like metal. Stop acting important, Blake added, shaking his head, grinning. You just sell soap online. And before I could breathe, ding. The room fell quiet. Mom picked up her phone, squinting at the screen. She adjusted her glasses, then blinked. Her eyes moved back and forth, reading, then rereading. Her fingers stilled. She looked up. Naomi, she said, her voice thinner now. Why are you on Forbes? Every head turned. Blake stopped chewing. Jeremy's smile faded. Mia furrowed her brows like she didn't quite understand the sentence. And me? I didn't say a word. I reached for my napkin, folded it quietly, placed it on the table, then sat back in my chair very still like I had nowhere to be, like I belonged there all along. I didn't always know what I was building. At first, I just needed something that felt like mine. It started after the layoff, the kind where no one looks you in the eye, where they call it restructuring, but the only people let go were women without MBAs or families to support. I packed a cardboard box in a building where I used to lead marketing strategy meetings, and the elevator ride down felt longer than the 4 years I'd spent climbing up. I didn't tell anyone for 3 weeks. Not my parents, not Mia, not even Blake. Especially not Blake. I told them I was consulting remotely for a skincare brand. That part was technically true. I had one client, a brand that paid in delayed wire transfers and awkward voice notes that started with, "Sorry for the delay." The truth was, I spent most days in a bathrobe. I couldn't afford therapy, but I could afford lavender oil, shea butter, and a $12 silicone mold from Amazon. The internet called it cold processed soap. I called it control. My first batch smelled like a hotel lobby and looked like lasagna. I watched the colors bleed, the swirls turn murky. I didn't care. I made something. With my hands, I made something. I posted it to my old Instagram. One like from a girl I went to high school with who now sold protein shakes. Then came the second batch, then third, then 100. The soap got prettier. The nights got longer. By the 4th month, I was averaging 3 hours of sleep. By the 6th, I had a name. Bare Alchemy. Not that anyone in my family cared. Dad snorted. Artisan. That's a generous word for it. Mom tilted her head. Sweetheart, are you okay? For money? I'm not asking for money. Just checking. You know you can always come back home if this doesn't work. It's working. They didn't ask follow-up questions. They never did. A month later, I got invited to a local vendor fair. I paid the $60 table fee using a Target gift card someone gave me for Christmas. I painted the logo on scrapwood, displayed soaps in crates I found behind a liquor store. I sold out in 3 hours. A woman came back the next day and bought 10 more. She said her sister had eczema and it was the first soap that didn't sting. That night, I cried for a long time. Not because I was sad, because someone had noticed. By the end of year 1, I had 8,000 orders. I worked every market, every pop-up, every co-op I could beg for space in. I printed shipping labels at the library. I bought postage in bulk. I wrapped each order by hand while watching reruns of Chopped on Mute. I developed carpal tunnel from tying ribbons. My living room became a fulfillment center. My bedroom became inventory. My desk was a kitchen table propped on milk crates. Still, every time I called home, no one asked. Mom would tell me how Mia's new boss took her out for sushi. Blake had just moved into a condo with a skyline view. You should see it, Naomi, she said once. So grown up. You should be thinking about investing soon. I did, I said. In myself? She didn't laugh, but she didn't acknowledge it either. When I hit my first 6 figures in profit, I called Dad. It was the first time in years I'd reached out unprompted. I waited until I had numbers, real ones, not projections, not dreams. I just wanted you to know, I said. I hit 100K. A long pause. In sales? He asked. No, I said. In profit. Another pause. Be careful with taxes, he said. That was the entire conversation. Mia once called my business a cute Etsy thing. I didn't bother correcting her. I'd built my own website months ago, optimized for conversion, a /B tested product pages, implemented subscription flow, but it didn't matter. She still introduced me as my sister, the one who makes natural soap. Not sells, makes, like I was sculpting in a shed. I asked Dad for a small loan once, just once. I had the analytics, the projections, the vendor agreements. I showed him a 12-page growth deck. I'd already bootstrapped to 5-figure months. I needed capital to scale my packaging and reduce per unit cost. I was ready. He nodded through the presentation. asked 2 questions about risk and marketing spend, and then looked at me like a father forced to fail his own child. It's just not the kind of business we'd invest in. We? Your mother and I. We've been discussing. They had given Blake $50,000 to invest in crypto. He lost it all in 6 months. After that, I stopped asking. I stopped telling too. I said yes to a $3,000 grant from a nonprofit for minority-owned businesses. Used it to hire a part-time fulfillment assistant. Her name was Corey. Single mom. She cried when I offered her the job. I paid her more than I paid myself. That's when things shifted. I moved into a small studio space with an actual work sink and a window that faced east. Morning light poured in like applause. I used to walk in and whisper, "Thank you for staying with me." The business, the space, myself. 2 years ago, I won a sustainability award for sourcing ingredients ethically. I used part of the prize money to start a community project in Ghana, my shea butter suppliers village. Water tanks, sanitary kits for girls. A shipping partnership that didn't exploit. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was humble. Because I didn't want to hear, "Is that tax deductible?" Last year, a celebrity tagged us on Instagram. She said our turmeric soap helped her acne more than anything else she'd tried. Orders quadrupled in 48 hours. The website crashed. We restocked in 3 days. My hand trembled when I refreshed the Shopify dashboard. I hit $1.4 million in gross revenue that quarter. Mom called that Sunday. She wanted to know if I was coming to Easter brunch. I said I was working. Still? I said nothing. She sighed. Okay, maybe next year. I built a business in silence. They say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I was the wheel they forgot existed. And while they clinked glasses and passed around job promotions, I learned how to balance a P&L, build customer lifetime value, and manage logistics with 2 employees, no investors, and a sleep schedule that would terrify most people. But when people ask what was the hardest part of starting my company, it wasn't the money, it wasn't the rejection, it was sitting at dinner tables with the people I loved, and knowing they would never ask me how I was doing, because they didn't want the answer to be better than you thought. There's a language families speak that isn't taught. Intonations, glances, a silence that hums louder than words. In mine, success had a particular accent, corporate, credentialed, and curated. I spoke it fluently once, or at least I tried to. I wore the suits, memorized talking points, kept a LinkedIn page with strategic keywords and smiling endorsements. I went to business school mixers and laughed at jokes that weren't funny. For a while, I played the part. But the problem with pretending is that eventually you start to notice when no one's pretending for you. I remember Mia's law school graduation like a movie I wasn't cast in. There were 48 folding chairs in our backyard, each with a white sash and monogrammed fan. A hired quartet played Vivaldi under the oak tree. Dad gave a toast that opened with, "Some daughters aim for decent." Mine aimed for Harvard. Everyone clapped. I was there too. I'd driven from a pop-up fair that ran late. My booth neighbor helped me pack up my soaps just so I could make it in time. I brought Mia a wrapped gift, a hand-blown glass diffuser, lemon verbena oil I'd mixed myself, and a note that said, "For clarity on the days that feel like fog." She didn't open it. Mom gave her a Tiffany bracelet. The next day, I saw the diffuser on a pile of discarded cards near the recycling bin. The note was gone. When Blake got his first promotion, Dad had it framed. A literal frame. It was one of those faux leather document holders with a glass front and gold border. He mounted it in the office above the fireplace. "It's not just about the title," he said. "It's about legacy." Blake had been promoted to junior account executive. I once sent them a press clipping after Modern Eco did a small write-up on Bare Alchemy, 1 column inch, nothing major. But still, my face, my words, in print. I never heard back. The next time I visited, the clipping was being used as scrap to line the kitchen drawers. Blake's wedding had 310 guests. I wasn't one of them. He said the guest list was tight, that the venue had limited space, that it was nothing personal. I saw the photos the next week. He'd rented out a converted castle in upstate New York. Mia's college friends were there. So were Dad's poker buddies. Even their old landscaper got an invite. I called to ask why. Blake sighed. "Naomi, come on. It's not a reflection of anything. You know how these things go." "You mean you couldn't make space for your sister?" He paused. "Don't make this a thing." So I didn't. But it became one anyway. Inside me. Mom once asked me to design the labels for Mia's bridal shower favors. "They're doing bath salts," she said. Thought it would be cute to have that handmade vibe. I spent 6 hours refining the color palette. Peach and sage, just soft enough to feel warm without looking flat. I printed them myself on high-quality craft stock, tied each one with twine, and overnighted the package. The shower photos went up the next day. Dozens of pictures, champagne, sun hats, pink candles, and custom tote bags. In the captions, thanks to our amazing vendors. Florals by at Gardenia Events. Designed by at Ever After Details. No tag, no credit. My labels were in the background of every shot, cropped, blurred, forgotten. That's the pattern. I'm good for help, for backup, for the parts that don't get noticed, like the year I hosted Thanksgiving because Mia's oven broke. I deep cleaned my apartment, spent 2 days prepping, made 4 sides from scratch. Mom arrived, looked around and said, "Oh, it's cozy." She brought her own linen napkins. During dinner, Dad thanked Mia for organizing everything. I didn't say a word. I just passed the gravy. There are photos, family photos. Dozens of them framed, posted, printed into coffee table books Mia makes every December. I flip through them sometimes when I visit. I try not to look too closely. It hurts less that way. But if you do, look closely, you start to notice a rhythm. I'm always on the end. At the far side of the frame, half smiling, angled inward as if trying to belong. Easy to crop out. And in one Christmas, 2017, I actually am. They posted it on Facebook. Everyone tagged, everyone glowing. Caption, the whole family together. Except I was there. I took the photo, they forgot to include me. I brought my soaps to a family reunion once. I thought maybe, just maybe, if they tried them, something might shift. I wrapped them neatly, 5 fragrances, labeled, arranged in a basket. Aunt Val took one, so did Jeremy's mom, but most left them behind. 2 hours in, one of the cousins, Trent, I think, held one up and said, "What's in this, Goat Pea?" Then laughed. Blake laughed louder. I smiled. That weird, tight-lipped smile you make when you're trying not to leak. Later, I found one bar on a lawn chair, melted, split open in the sun. It smelled like rosemary and lemon. It smelled like care. I threw it in the trash. Dad once said something that never left me. We were on the patio, him sipping scotch like it was part of his DNA. "I just wish you'd think a little bigger," he said. "You've always been a dreamer, Naomi." But dreams don't scale. Dreams aren't strategy. I wanted to tell him that I had quarterly projections, that I ran a profitable P&L, that I had net growth, supply chain solutions, customer loyalty metrics, churn reduction models, that I hired women from shelters, that I read case studies for fun, that I worked 70 hours a week and hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years. But all I said was, "Okay." He patted my hand like I'd admitted something useful, then went inside. The week after Blake's wedding, I shipped out 430 orders. The week after Mia's bridal shower, I onboarded a new co-manufacturer. The day after that Thanksgiving, I launched a 3-product skincare line and hit $40,000 in sales in 48 hours. But none of that made it into the family group chat. What did? A photo of Mia's new dog, 2 thumbs-up emojis. I kept receipts literal and emotional. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, out of survival. Because when no one celebrates your wins, you start having to archive them yourself. Tuck them into drawers like medals no one gave you. Tape them inside your ribcage. Count them quietly before bed so you don't forget who you are. It's strange. Being invisible doesn't mean no one sees you. It means they see a version of you that stopped evolving 10 years ago. A snapshot. Static. They don't see the woman who pulled herself up by fraying threads. They see the girl who once liked crafts. They see soap. Not the story. Not the company, not the power, just soap. And that's what made what happened at dinner all the more unbearable for them. Because in that one moment when the ding echoed off the walls and Mom's voice broke open with the words, "Why are you on Forbes?" the frame cracked. And suddenly, they saw me. The thing about building something no one takes seriously is, eventually it builds you too. I used to think resilience was loud an anthem or a comeback line, but mine was quiet. Built from repetition, from waking up at 4:30 a.m. not out of discipline but necessity, from measuring my days in bubble wrap and batch codes. By the time my family stopped rolling their eyes, I'd already built an empire in silence, not one built on noise, but on precision. My first real decision, the one that turned the tide, was about shea butter. A supplier emailed me offering cheap bulk. Too cheap. I ran a reverse search on their certificate of origin. Turns out they cut it with paraffin. I passed. Instead, I found a women-run cooperative in Tamale, Ghana. They did cold-extracted, unrefined batches, paid their workers fair wages, no child labor, no shortcuts. Their product was thicker, earthier, real. It cost more, but it felt like the thing I wanted to build. I wired the money myself. No intermediaries, no brokers, just a contract written on instinct and trust. It was the first time I paid someone else before I paid myself. That was the beginning of Bare Alchemy as more than a soap brand. It became an ecosystem. I rented my first official space in year 2, a 250 square foot room in an industrial park behind a tire shop. The landlord didn't even ask what I did, just said, "Keep it quiet and don't blow anything up." I painted the walls off-white, bought a folding table from Craigslist, hung a pegboard for drying racks. No heat in the winter, no air conditioning in the summer. I still remember the day I could finally afford a second stool. I bought it for $14.99, assembled it myself. I stared at it like it was a throne. Corey came next. She was my first hire. She'd been stocking shelves at a grocery store I stopped by late one night. We got to talking over a dented box of oats. Her eyes had this tired defiance, like she'd survived too much to bother pretending. I liked her immediately. I posted a job on a neighborhood board, part-time fulfillment, flexible hours, paid weekly. She applied with a handwritten note. "I've never packed soap, but I raised 3 boys. I can handle mess." I hired her the next morning. She cried. I pretended not to see. We shipped 140 orders that week, together, every box labeled by hand, every thank you card sealed with a wax stamp I bought off Etsy for $3. It had a leaf engraving on it. My customers thought it was elegant. They didn't know it was my way of apologizing for not being able to afford custom tissue paper. Then came the celebrity tag. It happened on a Sunday night. I was reorganizing my raw oils when my phone exploded with pings. A reality star posted a self-care Sunday reel. One of my turmeric soaps was in the background, centered like an altar. Tag at Bare Alchemy. Caption: "The only thing that doesn't burn my skin." We gained 22,000 followers overnight. Shopify crashed twice. Corey showed up the next morning with a travel mug of coffee and asked, "Are we dying?" I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. We processed 860 orders in 72 hours. By Friday, I had to hire 2 more people. By Monday, I'd quadrupled our output. I didn't sleep much, but I dreamed differently. I turned down my first investor shortly after that. A man in a slim blazer told me I had founder charisma, said he wanted to scale my vision into a lifestyle vertical. He also wanted 51% equity. I smiled, told him I'd rather eat soap. He didn't laugh. I built my own inventory system next. I couldn't afford enterprise tools, so I hacked together Google Sheets, color codes, and a script a college intern helped me write. It wasn't sleek, but it worked. We tracked every order, every cent, every batch. We made mistakes, but we never made the same one twice. That's how we built trust. One night, a woman emailed me from a cancer recovery center in Florida. She'd tried every skincare product under the sun. Everything stung, everything itched. Then someone gave her a bar of my calendula and oat soap. She said it made her feel human again. That word human sat in my chest like a stone. Warm. Solid. I started donating a batch a month to chemo patients after that. No press release, no newsletter blast, just a note in every box. You are not alone. Your skin is worthy of kindness. That was our unofficial mission statement. Still is. We grew. Quietly. By the time I moved into the second unit, 400 square feet with natural light and a back door, we had 5 part-time staff. All women, all over 40, all underestimated. The walls were lined with labeled shelves. The scent of eucalyptus and vetiver hung in the air like music. There was always tea brewing. No dress codes, no clocks. But we got everything done. On time. Every time. Because we knew what it meant to be dismissed. And we were done being underestimated. I taught myself financial modeling off YouTube, built an email flow that converted at 14%, launched a 3-product line that hit $200,000 in pre-sales, donated to 4 shelters in 3 cities, mentored 2 women who started their own side brands, formulated a custom product line for a burn recovery nonprofit. And still, when I posted family holiday photos, I captioned them like I was trying not to be too visible. Still, they called it her little soap business. I remember one winter my heater broke in the studio. Corey and I wore fingerless gloves, used hair dryers to keep the oils from solidifying. The shrink wrap machine shorted out from the cold. We laughed until we almost couldn't stand. "Bet Mia never had to do this at law school," Corey said. I grinned. "Bet she doesn't get calluses from peppermint oil." We high-fived with cracked hands. It felt better than any diploma I'd ever hung. We stayed under the radar on purpose. No viral stunts. No influencer hype trains, just clean product, ethical sourcing, story-driven packaging. I built a brand that didn't shout, it invited. And quietly, very quietly, it grew loud enough that people started listening. Forbes called in March. I thought it was a spam email. I deleted it twice. Then the editor DM'd me. "Hi Naomi, we're doing a piece on under 35 founders redefining wellness. You were nominated by 3 separate panelists. Can we feature you?" I sat on the studio floor for 20 minutes rereading the message. Then I said yes. Then I went back to batching rose clay and lavender bars. They sent a photographer. She asked to capture my process, said she loved the rawness of the space. I apologized for the clutter. She said, "Don't. This is exactly what people need to see." They ran the article with a headline I didn't write. From soap to sanctuary. How Naomi Reed is changing the face of clean beauty. I didn't tell my family. I didn't think they'd see it. I didn't think they'd care. But then at dinner when Blake said, "You just sell soap online?" and the room burst into the laughter I knew too well. That's when the ding came, and Mom read it out loud, and everyone turned. And for the first time in a decade, no one interrupted me, because I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Everything I'd built, everything they never asked about was now staring them in the face. And it wasn't small, and it wasn't homespun, and it wasn't silent anymore. They say a room can fall silent in stages, not all at once. First the laughter ends, then someone shifts in their chair, then silverware stops clinking, then even the walls start listening. The night Mom read the Forbes headline aloud, that's exactly how it happened. We were at the tail end of dinner. Dessert had just been cleared. The espresso machine in the kitchen hissed softly in the background. Jeremy was halfway through some story about a hedge fund guy he met in Bali. Mia kept checking her phone, waiting for a DM from a floral vendor. Dad was nursing his third glass of wine. And me? I was folding my napkin into a neat square, over and over. Something to do with my hands. That's when Blake leaned back in his chair and said it, loud enough to make sure I heard. "Stop acting important. You sell soap online." And the table laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Mom chuckled lightly like someone embarrassed for me. Mia smiled, the kind of smile you wear when you think someone else's dream is funny. Jeremy outright snorted. "You should make that your tagline." I didn't flinch, not on the outside, but inside something old cracked, not freshly, not suddenly, like a hairline fracture that had been waiting for the right pressure. And then, ding! Mom's phone buzzed. A long metallic silence followed. She picked it up, read, blinked, read again. "Naomi," she said, "why are you on Forbes?" The laughter froze. Mia's mouth stayed half open. Jeremy lowered his wine glass slowly. Blake's eyebrows tightened like he hadn't heard right. "What?" he asked. Mom turned the phone around. The screen glowed. It was the under 35 founders list. There I was, fourth from the top. A photo of me standing in my studio, no makeup, apron dusted with clay powder, my arms crossed. Behind me, shelves of soap, colorful, chaotic, beautiful. The headline was clear, Bare Alchemy. How Naomi Reed quietly built a multi-million-dollar wellness brand without outside investors. The caption below, rooted in ethics, scaled with purpose, loved globally. Nobody said a word. "I didn't know you were doing all that," Mom whispered. Her voice sounded far away. I stayed quiet, let it simmer, let the weight of their ignorance finally land. Because for once they weren't just dismissing me, they were realizing they never even tried to see me. Blake recovered first. "Wait," he said, trying to laugh. "You made that soap thing into a company?" I just looked at him. He tried again. "Come on, that article's probably fluff. They write about anyone now. Didn't they do a feature on a guy who makes origami furniture?" Dad cleared his throat. "Still, Forbes doesn't just pick random names." Mom was squinting again. "Naomi, it says here you employ people?" I nodded once. "And that you give back? Ghana?" "Correct," I said, calm, clipped, no emotion. Jeremy muttered, "You never mentioned any of this." "That's because none of you ever asked." And there it was, the real rupture. Not just the article, not just the company, but the years, the patterns, the dismissal, the conversations I was left out of, the assumptions, the absence of curiosity. And now, in front of their wine glasses and their hand-polished cutlery and their curated lives, they were sitting face to face with the fact that I had grown up while they weren't looking. Mia's voice was sharp. "So what? You've been hiding this?" "I wasn't hiding anything," I said. "I was building. You just weren't paying attention." Aunt Val shifted in her seat. "She's right," she said softly. "We never asked." Dad frowned. "We always supported you." "No," I cut in. "You tolerated me. You didn't support me." Mom opened her mouth, closed it again. Silence. Jeremy tried a joke. "Guess I'll be ordering some soap soon." I didn't smile. "You already did," I said. 6 months ago. You ordered a starter pack for Mia, left no tip, requested a refund because you didn't like the scent profile. Everyone stared at him. His face turned red. "I didn't realize that was your brand?" "Exactly." Blake reached for his glass. "This doesn't change anything," he said. "You still make soap." "No," I said slowly. "I built a business. That employs women. That pays living wages. That's profitable. That donates. That's self-funded. That's ethical. That scales. That helps people. I didn't take shortcuts. I didn't raise capital by calling in favors from dad's friends. I didn't need a trust fund to get my first prototype made. I bootstrapped it. Alone. He looked away. Mia said nothing. Dad stared at the table. Mom folded her hands. Tight. Like in church. Then Corey's text came in. We just crossed 1 million followers. You're trending. I smiled. A soft, quiet, real smile. Not the kind I used to fake at these tables. You've been doing all this without telling us? Mom asked again, dazed. No, I said. I told you, dozens of times. You just weren't listening. Then I stood up. I should go. I have work in the morning. Mia blinked. It's Sunday. I work 7 days. Nobody stopped me. No one offered leftovers, no hugs, no guilt trip calls to sit a little longer. It was the cleanest exit I'd ever made. As I walked toward the front door, I heard Aunt Val say, we owe her an apology. And for once, no one disagreed. I didn't look back, didn't pause at the porch, didn't check to see who was watching from the window. I climbed into my Civic, turned the key, and pulled away. Slowly, silently. There was nothing left to prove, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is build something so undeniable that they're forced to see you. Power doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in through the back door. Sometimes it sounds like a phone not ringing, like a voice in your head going, you don't need them to get it, because now they do, and it's too late. The night after the dinner, I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't spiral. I made a cup of cinnamon tea, turned my phone on silent, and read customer emails. One woman said my charcoal bar helped her teenage son feel confident enough to go to prom. Another said my eucalyptus blend reminded her of her grandmother's garden. She hadn't cried in years until she opened the package. These were the people who'd always seen me, not because I asked them to, because they chose to. But still by morning the messages started. Mia was first. Hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot last night. I'm actually really proud of you. Let's grab coffee soon. I have some ideas I'd love to share about PR strategy. Could be cool to collaborate sometime. Translation. You're hot now. Let's attach my name to it. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, because I didn't need her version of pride anymore. Blake texted next. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I was just joking. You know how we tease. I think what you've done is cool. Maybe we could talk about some investment ideas? That one made me laugh. I took a screenshot, then archived the thread. Mom called 3 times. I let them all go to voicemail. On the 4th try, she left one. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, like someone trying not to crack. Naomi, I don't know what to say. I think we were wrong. About a lot. I didn't know how hard you'd worked. I didn't see it. That's on me. I just hope it's not too late for us to show up differently. She ended with, I'm proud of you. And for a moment, I sat there frozen. Not because I needed to hear it, but because I no longer did. The next week, Forbes published a follow-up. 5 Founders Changing Wellness by Building Ethical Empires. My photo was larger this time. The caption read, Naomi Reed, as founder of Bare Alchemy, built not just a brand, but a movement. The article mentioned the community programs, the Ghana Co-op, the Sustainable Packaging Initiative, the Zero Waste Promise, the fact that we were now in talks with 2 national retailers for shelf space I hadn't asked for, but had earned. The following Saturday, I opened the studio early. Corey brought muffins, I brought champagne. Our fulfillment team wore matching aprons we screen printed ourselves. We celebrated with music and bad dancing and handwritten notes taped to the walls. Every order matters. Kindness is currency. We build from scratch, every day. I looked around and felt something anchored deep in my chest. Not pride, peace. Later that afternoon, Dad showed up, unannounced. He stood outside the studio door in a pressed collared shirt, holding a box of wine he probably thought counted as fancy. I opened the door, wiped my hands on my apron. We stood like strangers in a foreign country. I saw the articles, he said. I nodded. Okay. He shifted. You really built all this? Yes. Pause. I should have paid attention sooner. Another pause. I didn't know you had it in you. I tilted my head. That's the part that stings, Dad. You didn't think I could. He swallowed. I'm proud of you, Naomi. I looked at him, at the man who once framed Blake's promotion but wouldn't co-sign a loan for mine. Then I said, that's nice, but I didn't build this for your pride. He nodded slowly, put the wine down on the table, then left. He didn't ask for a tour, didn't touch a single bar of soap. That was fine. Some things aren't meant to be shared retroactively. 3 weeks later, I got a package. No name, no card, just a box of my soap, my own soaps repackaged into a gift basket. From Mia. The note tucked inside read, "Gifting these to the new partners at my firm. They love small batch stuff. Thought of you." At the bottom, "P.S. Let me know if you want to brand a lawyer collection. Could be cute." I smiled, then tossed the note. I repacked the soaps, sent them to a shelter instead. Bare Alchemy crossed $2 million in revenue that quarter. I hired 3 new women, 2 from second chance programs, 1 from a domestic violence nonprofit. We started plans for a flagship storefront, equal parts retail, workshop, and community space. And one afternoon, standing beneath the sun-drenched windows of that future store, I said aloud to no one. They laughed until it wasn't funny anymore. Then I went back to work. Because MAOB-style revenge isn't about fire, it's about frost. It's about staying cool when they finally realize the joke wasn't on you, it was you all along. They thought I was small because they never looked close enough. But I was never small. I was just quiet. And now? I'm not quiet anymore. There's a particular silence people carry when they know they got you wrong. It shows up in delayed texts, in polite emails with too many exclamation marks, in invitations disguised as olive branches. When Forbes ran that second piece, I stopped being Naomi who makes soap. I became Naomi the founder. Same girl, same hands, same formulas. But suddenly they said my name differently, like it had weight now. It began with a podcast, a mid-tier business show, The Grit Table. They asked for a 30-minute feature. I almost said no. I didn't want to talk about trauma to people who thought of it as content. But the host was different. She asked about logistics and sourcing and emotional burnout. She'd done her research. She even quoted one of my blog posts from 2019, back when only 12 people read it. So I said yes. The episode aired a week later. By Monday, we had 40,000 new followers, and the DMS changed. A PR agency wrote, "We love your story. Have you ever considered doing a TEDx talk?" A health brand said, "We're building a DTC accelerator. You'd be the perfect face." A national skincare retailer sent flowers and a Let's Partner card. And then one morning, I opened my inbox and froze. Subject line, Harvard Business School, Women Founders Summit. The message was short. "We'd love to have you speak this fall. Main stage, paid." I stared at the screen, then I laughed, out loud. Mia had graduated from HBS. I'd barely passed Chemistry 101. 3 days later, Mia texted me, "Saw you're doing a Harvard keynote? That's huge. They must be really pivoting, huh? Let me know if you want help writing the speech. I still have my old notes." I didn't respond, not out of anger, out of evolution. Her notes didn't apply anymore. Meanwhile, Bare Alchemy expanded. We moved into our flagship space, 900 square feet, all white brick walls, hand-built shelves, and a soap bar with an in-house perfumer. The storefront had 2 entrances, retail in front, community room in back. We held monthly workshops, free sessions on financial literacy, guest speakers from sustainable farming co-ops, skincare classes for teens navigating chemo, product design sprints with women trying to launch their first side hustle. It was more than a store. It was a blueprint. The same week we opened, Blake called. I hadn't spoken to him since the dinner. He sounded upbeat. A little too upbeat. "Hey sis, just saw your brand trending again. Huge congrats. I actually have a client looking to invest in indie wellness. Maybe you'd want to grab coffee?" I said, "Why?" He chuckled. "Just want to help. I've got access now." "No," I said. "No to what?" "No, I don't want help from someone who thought my business was a punchline." He was quiet for a second, then said, "Don't be like that. I'm not being like anything. I'm just finally choosing who gets access." I hung up, then blocked his number. Dad emailed. Subject, "Can we talk?" He wanted to meet for lunch, just the 2 of us. Said he wanted to understand more. Said he was trying. We met at a quiet bistro near the studio. He ordered steak. I ordered lentils. For the first 10 minutes, he asked basic questions. "How many employees? Do you manage payroll yourself?" Then he leaned in. "Do you ever think about taking this bigger? Like IPO level?" I sipped my water. "I'm not interested in building for exit. I'm building for legacy." He blinked, then nodded. "I didn't teach you that," he said. "No," I replied. "You didn't." We didn't hug. But when I stood to leave, he said, "I see it now. You weren't trying to be different. You were just already ahead." I walked away without looking back, not out of spite, out of peace. At the studio, the team had decorated my office, handmade cards, confetti, a framed print that said, "They told us to stay small." We got louder instead. Corey brought out cake, lavender lemon, my favorite. The lights were warm. The room smelled like eucalyptus and honey. I felt like I was breathing my own story, one I'd written alone, revised in silence, now published in every room I walked into. One afternoon, a woman came into the store with her teenage daughter. She held a turmeric bar to her nose and said, "My mother used to make something like this." We got to talking. She just left a toxic job, was trying to start over, said she didn't know what she was good at anymore. I handed her a free class voucher, told her to show up next Saturday. She cried. Her daughter hugged me. I kept the wax-stained sleeves of my apron on. Let the hug sink in. That's what success feels like when you build it right. 2 weeks later, Forbes called again. We want to do a profile, full spread, centerpiece for our print edition. They sent a stylist. I told her, no heels, no rented jewelry, no clean girl CEO aesthetic. I wore jeans, a t-shirt with soap dust on it, hair in a bun, no filter. They ran it anyway. Cover line. The founder who didn't wait for permission. That same day, the family group chat reactivated. Aunt Val wrote, "Saw the cover? Naomi, you're glowing." Mia sent a heart emoji. Jeremy replied, "So proud of you, cuss." Even Mom messaged, "Thinking of hosting a family brunch. Would love to celebrate Naomi's success." I didn't answer. I had no interest in a party thrown out of guilt. Because the real celebration? It was happening every day in my store, in every order we packed, in every woman we hired, in every handwritten thank you card we sealed, where it always mattered, where it was always real. Power isn't loud, not the kind that lasts. Real power doesn't beg for recognition. It doesn't chase applause. It builds rooms where applause becomes obsolete. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I was busy building what they said was impossible. And the best part? They now had front row seats, but no say in the script. There's a moment in every builder's life where the noise fades, not because people stop talking, but because their voices no longer matter. The real symphony? It's in the rhythm of what you've created, the hum of the studio lights as the first team member clocks in, the hiss of oils warming, the soft thunk of packed boxes being stacked, the echo of your name being said with respect, not surprise. That's where I live now, not above anyone, just no longer beneath them. A year had passed since the dinner, the one where Blake's words hung in the air like mildew. Stop acting important. You sell soap online. I never responded, because the world already had. Bare Alchemy was now stocked in over 70 boutique retailers. Our team had grown to 16 women, ranging from 22 to 63. No formal degrees, no industry background, just grit, integrity, craft. Every Friday we did gratitude circles before clocking out. Corey always cried. I pretended not to. I sat for a profile with a legacy magazine that once wouldn't answer my emails. The journalist asked, "Do you have regrets about how your family handled your rise?" I thought about it, about Mia's silence when I was just Naomi who ships Etsy orders, about Dad's lectures on stability, about Blake measuring my success by whether or not it made sense to him. Then I shook my head. Number. They didn't know how to value what hadn't succeeded yet, and I stopped waiting for them to learn. She paused, nodded slowly. "That's grace," she said. I didn't correct her, but it wasn't grace. It was clarity. Sometimes I still visit the old studio, Unit 14C, behind the tire shop. Still smells faintly of bergamot and lavender. I stand in that empty square room, run my fingers along the dent in the wall where the old rack used to teeter, and remember the girl who stayed up all night shipping 8 orders she thought would change her life. She wasn't wrong. They did. But not because of where they led me, because of who she became while chasing them. 2 months ago, a local school reached out. They wanted to do a career day. Normally they had lawyers, tech folks, consultants, but one of the teacher's wives used my soap. She told him, "This woman built something out of nothing." So they called. I said yes. That Friday, I walked into a 4th grade classroom, wore my apron, brought samples, showed them how scents are layered, how oils are balanced. One boy raised his hand. "Is it true your family didn't believe in you?" I blinked, then smiled. Sometimes people don't see your dream until it's standing right in front of them. He nodded like he understood more than most adults, then asked, "Are you mad at them?" I paused. "Not anymore. I just built something so real their doubt didn't matter." The teacher clapped. The kids clapped. And I swear, somewhere inside me, the girl who once packed soaps on the floor of her studio finally exhaled. That night, I drove home with the windows down. No podcast, no calls, just air and streetlights and the hum of my engine. Halfway through the drive, a text came through. From Mom. "I watched your keynote. I didn't understand before. I do now." Underneath it, "I hope one day we can start over. On your terms." I didn't reply. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt, just appreciated for how far they helped you walk before you built your own. Last week, a young woman came into the store, said she'd been following Bare Alchemy for a year, said she started her own brand, tiny, raw, hers, said she was scared, said no one believed in her. Then she asked, "How did you make them believe?" I told her the truth. I didn't. I just made it impossible for them to ignore. She started crying. I handed her a bar of rose clay and oat, the same one that paid my first studio rent. Here, I said, for luck. But it wasn't luck. It was fire, contained, directed, sacred. This is what revenge looks like in real time. Not slamming doors, but building ones no one thought you could walk through, then holding them open for others. Not shouting your wins, but letting your existence do the talking. Not dragging them to the truth, but letting them find it years later in a magazine rack or a conversation they weren't invited into. Now, when people ask me how I handled the disrespect fall, I just say, I didn't handle it. I outlived it. I sell soap, ethically, globally, unapologetically, and they'll never laugh at that again. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.